In this episode, we'll talk about web design careers and whether or not you should start one. Hello, I'm your host Casino. I'm the Digital Alchemist, and in this episode, we'll talk about web design careers and whether or not you should start one. One, why you should start a web design career. So first of all, you should start a web design career if you're a creative person and of course you love the web. But what I mean by that is I've done many jobs in my life, and web design has all the things that I like. I've always liked creativity. Even before the web, I just like nice things, nice stuff. I like to communicate visually. I love graphic design. I love cinema. I love all this type of creative stuff. And like I said, I've done many jobs in my life. And some of those jobs were well paid. And I could have made a career. But something was missing. I was lacking something. And initially, I didn't know what it was. But then I found that even in my day-to-day tasks, like even working in an IT help desk, I was trying to be creative with everything I had to do. And that's when I knew I need to be creating. I really need to create. But you know how life goes. You get a good job, you get a good salary, and you want to buy a house and all of that. And you think, okay, I'm going to do the right thing, whatever the right thing is. But the thing is, at one point, I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take it. And I knew that web design was something that was really for me because, like I said, it has all the creative stuff that I love in cinema, in pictures, in graphic design, in animation, and all of that together. Even though at the beginning, I mean, video was not a big thing because, bandwidth was really not as fast as today. But still, I could see that this was going to be big. And if you're the type of person that's really creative, that would be a good reason to get into web design. Now, granted, you need to also love digital stuff. You might tell me, yeah, of course, if I'm watching this video, but you never know. Sometimes I meet some graphic designer and they tell me that they prefer paper, and that's their opinion. And I don't know the relationship they have with paper. Maybe it's a totally different game that I don't really know. I can't really grasp it the way they do, but of course you need to enjoy digital. But what I mean also is that I've seen some people come from other types of creative works, graphic design, even though I just gave the other example, but I've also seen some graphic designers that smoothly transition to becoming web designers. I've seen people that come from the video industry, actually people from all industries, but what really matters is not really the job you've done before or the degree you have, but it's really about, do you love creating? And it's not just do you love creating, can you actually function without creating? Can you go sit every day in a cubicle without creating? And only you can answer that question. But one thing you can do is look at your current job if you're employed today, or your current business, and do you find yourself trying to be creative in your day-to-day tasks like I did? Well, if you do, and if at the same time you feel like you're lacking something, well, it may be interesting to look into web design because, as I said, for creative people, in my opinion, web design has it all. Next, another good reason to get into web design is the fact that you love learning new stuff. And trust me, if you love learning, well, web design might be a good fit for you because behind the term web design, it's kind of difficult to know what people are really doing because some web designers don't touch code, whereas others are called web designers, but they do code like HTML and CSS. And some are called web developers, but they actually do design. So, the limit is really hard to tell. But if you love learning new stuff, this is the right field because the web is constantly evolving. There are new technologies, new tools, new techniques, new trends, and it never stops. And if you've been following the channel, you know that I often say that you become old the day you stop learning. That's my opinion. Maybe I heard that somewhere. I don't know. Maybe I'm quoting myself or maybe I heard that somewhere. But what I'm trying to say is that in my opinion, as long as you're learning new stuff, you keep that creative mind, you keep that hunger for knowledge that we almost all had when we were kids. We wanted to know everything, most of us anyway. And when we become adults, we tend to stop learning that way. We tend to stop having that hunger for knowledge. And as a creative, you need to learn new stuff. You need to keep that hunger alive. I love learning because it makes me feel fresh. It makes me feel like, yeah, I'm still evolving. I'm constantly learning new stuff. Granted, in other industries, you might have to learn also, but I see some of my friends and the jobs they're doing, and they got their degree, and okay, once per year they have a kind of a refresh. I don't know how they call it, but they go through a light training, a few hours, just to see if they know what's going on. Whereas there's not a week where I don't learn something new. Even when I'm not working, I'm just browsing, I'm on YouTube, I'm watching stuff, and I see something new, something trendy. I want to know what's going on. And if I like what I see, I want to test it myself. And then I want to create my own version of it. And that's why here on the channel, some of the tutorials came from something I actually learned. And we all have different ways of learning. But in my case, I love learning by doing real projects. It could be fake, but I call them real fake life projects. And to me, that's the best way to learn, because you put yourself in a situation where you actually need to deliver the solution. So you need to find your way around. And you might not see that when I release a tutorial. It may seem like, yeah, it's easy, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. But sometimes I've spent 2-3 days trying to find a solution. Not for all of them, but I have a couple of tutorials in mind where, I had a wall in front of me, and there was something I could not do. So I had to learn a new technique, and it really helped. And I love that, because once I've learned it and I put it into a tutorial video, well, I will never forget it. Even if I forget it, it's set in stone, because I created the tutorial. I have the project. I still have the project. I have a backup. And that process, if you love that, well, that could be a good reason to get into web design, because personally, I wouldn't want to be in a job where you learn stuff once and then you start collecting dust. And before you know it, 20 years have passed and someone tells you, well, what you learned was current 20 years ago. Now, that can still happen with web design, true. But if you're really passionate, you're going to follow what's going on. Sometimes, it's the weekend, I'm about to rest, and then I see something popping up that there's a new release of Elementor or another plugin that I enjoy using. And if I see that some of the new features are something that I'm really interested in, most of the time, I won't be able to wait just until after the weekend, and right away I will try to find 1 hour and test some stuff, because I just can't do otherwise. I love learning new stuff. It's not really an option, just like the fact that I'm a creative person. It's the same thing. I love learning. Now, when I was in school, it was a different story. I can say I was a good student. I had good grades, but it's not really something that I enjoyed. So I never knew I enjoyed learning until I started learning something I love. And that's totally different, because I don't feel like I'm learning. I don't feel like it's work. I just feel like I'm getting all that knowledge and it's great. And I'm putting it into practice, because knowledge without the actions, it doesn't really matter. But when you learn stuff and then you can implement it in your next commercial project, it's a great feeling. It's great for your clients. It's great for yourself, good for your brain. And it makes you always more connected to the reality of your industry. 2, why you should not start a web design career. And the first point is the fact that you think it's easy. There's Wix, right? And WordPress is free, and you can get free themes. And you've seen on YouTube that you can create a website in 5 minutes. So what's the big deal? So in other words, if you want to get into web design because you think it's easy,
don't.
Now, of course, if you think that web design is just installing WordPress, installing the first theme that you see and just putting your client's logo there, just adding the text and the pictures, then yes, it's easy. But to me, this is not the definition of web design. What I just explained is just someone that can install WordPress and add some stuff. But most people could do that. In my opinion, there is no value in that. I honestly think that you can teach anyone to do that in one day. Just installing WordPress, adding a picture, changing a logo, adding some text. Anybody could do this. Most people, anyway. In my opinion, web design is really the art of getting the message from your client or yourself, what you're trying to communicate to the world, preparing and assembling all the assets, making decisions, and then presenting all of that to the world in a way that's easy to digest, easy to navigate, fresh, whether you are on a phone, on a desktop, on a tablet, using the right colors, using the right images, selecting the right fonts, finding that digital alchemy that will make that project, that website above the competition. See, you will find many ads and courses that tell you that it's so easy. And people often mistake the tools for the skills, and it's completely different. If I give you the tools that the painter Picasso had, do you really think that you're going to create masterpieces and that people are going to talk about you in 200 years? Well, unless you're the reincarnation of Pablo Picasso, or unless you're really talented and this is your call, well, my guess is that you won't be able to do anything better than a toddler with his tools. So what do people think that because you have Wix or WordPress or Weebly or Webflow, why do people think that because you have a tool, you're a great web designer? You have the latest gear, MacBook Pro, whatever. You got Photoshop, you got everything. Does that make you a good web designer? I don't think so. I think that what will make you a good designer and a good web designer is repetition. Repetition is the mother of skills. Everybody has to start somewhere. And then gradually you're going to get better. Now, some people are really good from day one because that's something they have in them. You know, they could be good at anything when it comes to creative stuff. But most people, they have to work for it. Maybe they have a little talent, but they need to, really work on their talent. And it's actually better because if you think about it, many people are really talented, but they don't do anything with their talent. We see that in sports. How many players, whatever sports you enjoy, could be basketball, could be football, could be soccer, whatever. How many young players were, like the next new big thing, the next new star, new hero, and then they went just like that because they were relying solely on the talent. They thought it was going to be easy. And that's what I'm trying to explain here. Even if you have a natural talent, don't think that web design is easy. Bad web design is easy. It's extremely easy. And you can actually make a living with bad web design because I see it every day. But in the long run, I'm not sure it's going to be a good strategy because you're going to be outworked by good web designers. Good web design instead, it takes dedication, it takes work, it takes repetition, but it's so much fun. So to sum it up, if you want to get into web design because you think it's extremely easy,
don't.
Next, if you want to get into web design because you actually hate studies and you think you're going to make a quick buck with web design, once again, don't. Now, let's be honest. You can go to a school and learn web design for 4 or 5 years. And in my opinion, you're not going to be better than someone that, tried for themselves for 6 months. Could be learning on YouTube, could be learning on Udemy, Team Treehouse, Lynda, whatever. But I believe that some people can start a junior position like in 6 months, even 3 months for the best ones. So I'm not really advising to go make long studies 4 or 5 years. That's not what I'm talking about. But also, what I'm trying to say is that if you get into web design because you hate studies and you think that the learning phase is going to be so short, well, you're in for a disappointment because, like I said earlier in this video, if you want to be a good web designer, you need to learn constantly. It's never going to stop. So, okay, you're not going to study 4 or 5 years at the beginning of your career, but you're going to learn each and every week for the rest of your career. So I believe that you're going to learn more than if you did traditional studies. So I think it's really a bad reason to get into web design just because you think, okay, it's going to be short and easy. I can, can't be bothered studying. I don't like studying. If you don't like studying, you're not going to like web design because, and if you don't believe me, just imagine at the beginning of web design, you only had to design for the desktop. So it was 1024 pixels by 768, and that was it, and we found it quite hard at the time. I mean, when I was learning, and then finally it became easy. But then responsive web design happened. And if you don't know what responsive web design is, it's the fact that a website should fit on a mobile, on a tablet, portrait mode, landscape mode. So instead of designing for like one screen, you're designing for minimum 3 to 5 if you count the portrait and landscape modes. So if you're the type of person that got into web design because you thought you would never study again, what would you have done when responsive web design happened? Because trust me, I had to spend so much time just first grasping the concept and then trying to create it myself with HTML and CSS. And nowadays it's easy. You get into Elementor or Divi or whatever, and you just click, on an icon and you select the right format, you make your tweaks, and that's it. But at the time, it was not like that. And the thing is, most of the time, when new stuff happens, you need to get your hands dirty. So once again, what would you have done? I mean, I had to learn so much at that time. It was really stressing because people got word. I mean, clients got word of this responsive web design, and is my website going to work on a mobile phone? Whereas previously, before responsive web design, we had the desktop version, and we could also create a mobile version that was most of the time completely separate from the desktop version. So in terms of budget, also it was different. So clients got word, and they started asking, oh, do you do responsive website? At the beginning, it was fine because not many people could do it. So I could tell the clients, okay, we're in the middle. And I said, we, like we all do. You work as a freelance, you work on your own, but like,
We are.
so basically, I had to really learn quickly so I could start delivering. And that's my point. If you got into web design because you thought it was going to be, the shortest learning phase of your life, you're wrong. And guess what? This kind of thing happened all the time. 2 years ago, it was GDPR. GDPR, the European law about the privacy settings, cookie privacy, and all of that. Now, if you live in a part of the world where GDPR is not really relevant, then you may not care at this moment, but trust me, something similar is coming to your place because all the governments want that kind of rules because really they're targeting big corporations. But the thing is, they're targeting the big corporations, but we also have to comply, even if you have a small, tiny website. So that's another thing you had to learn and how to implement, what you need to do with it. And there are so many things, not always related to web design, but that are part of the whole package. And also, like I said, if you also think that it's going to be a quick buck, well, unless you're extremely talented, and from day one if you get employed and you get a great salary, but most of the time when you start as a junior, it's not going to be that good. And if you go the freelance route, well, if you're just getting started, like I said, either you're really talented commercially this time, but even if you manage to get people to sign up and buy and purchase services with you, if you're not good at what you do, if you don't spend the time to really create a solution for your client, well, You won't get recurring business and also word of mouth. At one point, people will know, okay,
if I'm gonna pay that kind of money, I'd rather go to their competitors because at least they spend the time. They have a nice portfolio. They got some results for their clients. Whereas this one, he just want the money. He or she.
so in other words, if you think that it's really easy to get into web design and you're going to make a lot of money quickly, well, you're going to be disappointed. I do believe you can make decent to great money for the best ones with web design. And some people are totally crushing it. Even here on YouTube, some people are really crushing it. And there's a lot to learn from them. But if you only get into this because you think you're going to make a big buck quickly without doing anything, without lifting a finger, nope.
Nope.
3. Opportunities of a web design career. And the first point is the fact that you'll be able to work for big brands, especially if you start working for an agency, you get employed first. At one point, you'll be able to work for big brands. I was lucky enough to be employed by an agency, and some of their clients were McDonald's, the BNP Bank, Nissan, Kia, Fiat, Land Rover, Alfa Romeo, and many, many more. So I was just employed, but the fact that I had to deal with those big companies, it really taught me how it works commercially. So not just creating the assets, because it was not always web design. Sometimes it was community management. Sometimes it was linked to digital, but it also taught me project management. Now, depending on which agency you're going to work for, you might just be, doing web design and that's it. But in most agencies, you're doing various stuff. So it's a really stressful experience. I'm going to be honest. It's really stressful, but you learn so much in such a short time. So it's great to be able to work with those brands and really understand what's important for them. Because if you plan to become a freelance or start your own agency, you will know how to run it. And you won't get that kind of experience in many other industries. In this industry, you can be working on a big campaign with Nissan. And Nissan, at the time I was employed by the agency, they were a sponsor of the European Champions League. I don't know if they still are. I think they are, but at that time they were a sponsor. So we created some games and some assets for the Champions League. And it was great because I was in touch with people in various places in the world and we had to get the campaign going. And it taught me so much. It's a great experience. And actually, some of my colleagues, they left the agency and they went to work for some of the clients. Now, I did not do it because, first of all, honestly, those big corporations and companies, this is not for me. I have worked for big corporations before. And although it's great to have the opportunity, it's not something I wanted to do. And also, at one point, I knew that I wanted to become a freelance, start my own business. So, I didn't want to go. I already had that experience. But what I'm trying to say is that for someone that is a junior, working with big clients, they might get some opportunities and get their dream job. And for that specific colleague I'm talking about, it was really easy because he was the contact point for one of those big brands. And at one point, they told him, listen, we need someone like you. Now, we don't want to get in trouble with your agency. And eventually, I think they talked to the boss of the agency. It was settled as gentlemen. But what I'm trying to say is that if they had put an offer for a job and he had applied without knowing them, probably, he could have gotten the job, but they get so many applications that the odds were really, really small. Whereas here, he was already working with them on a few campaigns, and eventually he was offered the job on a silver plate. So this is the type of opportunities, especially if you're getting started, it's really, really great to work with those big brands. It's gonna teach you so much. And that brings me to my next point, which is the fact that embracing a web design career is the first step to actually becoming your own boss. Now, of course, you don't have to become your own boss. You can stay employed if this is something that you prefer. And I've already talked about that extensively. There is no shame in being an employee. If you know that entrepreneurship is not for you, freelancing is not for you, but you're dedicated to really be a good web designer and really putting all your talent and your hard work for your company, then you're gold, because what would be companies without excellent employees? But if you want to become your own boss, like I said, if you start working for an agency and you get to work with a lot of different brands, you're going to learn so much. That's why I always encourage people, if they want to get a job, at least try to get a job in a good agency. Not an agency that started yesterday. Try to find really an established agency where you're going to work with big brands, because like I said in the previous point, you're going to learn so much. So that's going to be a stepstone, because you will know how to deal with clients, how to talk to them, what are the kind of protocols, what do they expect, what is it like. And then when you have all that knowledge, it's going to be way easier. With a few projects under your belt, you can start freelancing on the side first. It could be, a side gig where you do a few hours here and there, and you start with your inner circle first, trying to get some experience in the freelancing game. And by the way, if you're interested in freelancing, make sure you subscribe, because I talk about freelancing a lot. So once you get all of that rolling, so you have your job, you have your side gig, and you can put some money aside, at one point, naturally, you will want to fly on your own. And if you got some money on the side, for example, that you can last for 6 months to a year. A year would be best, but 6 months to a year. At one point, you can just quit your job if you feel comfortable with it. Decision has to come from you, but it's like the first time you need to go into a swimming pool. At one point, you need to dive in. But if you measure the risk, it can really be great for you. It can be life-changing. Personally, I don't regret having been employed. It was a great experience, taught me a lot. But I love freelancing. I love being my own boss. That's what it really is. And freelancing gave me that. Even though technically freelancing is being your own boss, so you still have a job and the boss is yourself. But sometimes it still feels like a job, but it's the first step to entrepreneurship, where you can start different businesses, but at least you get the mindset, how it works. And I think probably the hardest thing for most people is the lack of security.
Lack.
Quote unquote. Why do I do that? Just because you see what's been happening lately. Many people have been laid off. So is there really a security in having a job? I'm not so sure. And maybe you're not so sure anymore. Whereas when you're freelance, each and every week, each and every month, you need to make a living. So you have that mindset that you're not expecting anything from anyone. You just need to go and find some clients, find some leads first, convert them into clients, get some recurring business, do the work, do all the things you have to do, aside the fact that you'll be creating websites. But like I said, it's a first step.
It's a stepstone.
So I really believe that it's one of the smoothest transition you can have when you want to become your own boss, because you're going to start as a junior web designer, then you're going to move to a middle or senior position, you get more experience, you work with a lot of brands, then you start your side gig, and one day you are your own boss. And then some people, they just stay freelance for a really long time, maybe all of their career, because they enjoy that. Some people, they will create an agency or a different type of business, or they will use their skills to create a different type of business, but with the digital as a foundation. Now, many industries offer a lot of possibilities, but I really believe that web design, it's a bit of like the best of both worlds. You can be employed if you want, but you can be your own boss. And the two work really well together. So I hope that you got value out of this video. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up, as it really, really helps growing this channel. It's only going to take you like 1 second, but to me, it means
A lot.
Now, if you want to create a beautiful, gorgeous brand identity, I got a free brand guidelines template that actually usually I sell. When I sell that to my clients, when they ask me for a new identity, this is part of the package. So I'm not going to create a new identity for you, but at least you get the template and you can download it for free from my website. Now, initially it was made for Affinity Designer, but you can use it with Adobe Illustrator with a workaround. So if you're interested, just go to casino.com/branding. Now, if you want more videos about web design and freelancing and you're not yet subscribed to the channel, well, make sure you subscribe and smash the notification bell so that you don't miss anything. So that's it for this episode. I hope to see you in the next one. And in the meantime, don't forget to invest
In your success.